In today's video, I'm going to show you how I painted these abstract shell doodles using digital watercolor in the app Procreate. If you're interested, please keep on watching. Hello and welcome to Color with Kendi. On this channel, we paint digital watercolor and gouache on the iPad, and all of my tutorials are step-by-step tutorials so you can follow along with me. For today's video, I am using a bunch of different supplies. You can use whatever you have on hand, but if you'd like to follow along using the same supplies as me, I have them listed in the pinned comment as well as the description, so feel free to check that out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is open up the paper canvas that I'm using, and this has a nice texture, but it's not too much. I don't want something with too much texture for this particular painting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the traceable as well as the color palette. I'm just going to go to the layers panel, and where I have inserted the traceable, I'm just going to tap on N and then reduce the opacity to about 10%, and let's go to the layers panel and tap on the paint here layer. This is where we're going to start painting, and we can start to add more layers right above this. So I'm going to zoom in and select this first color here by pressing and holding on it. This invokes the color picker function. And I'm going to select a brush. To open up the brush library, and I'm going to pick brush number 8, which is Simple Watercolor Pigmented. It's a pigmented brush, does not have too much texture as you can see, and it has a subtle watercolor edge, so this is perfect for the base layers. So I'm just going to start painting in all of these shapes. And I'm trying to do this without lifting my pencil, because if I lift my pencil and then lay down more pigment, what you'll see is this subtle watercolor overlap, which you can always smudge out, but I'm trying to avoid that. So what I'm going to do is just do this in one motion. And I'm not trying to be perfect with it, so it's not exactly like the traceable, it's a little bit different. And just keep your pencil on the screen and color in that shape. There we go. So it's as simple as that, and I'm going to continue this with the rest of the doodles. Okay, so I am done with the base colors for all of the doodles. Let's just turn off the traceable for a moment. And as you can see, there's a very subtle watercolor texture right now. This is not meant to be very textured at this point, and there is an interesting edge that's not perfect looking. So that's exactly what I wanted. Now, the next step is to start adding more color and more effects to this. And now I'm going to go to the layers panel and tap on plus. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to add interesting effects and colors here. I'm going to do this in a clipping mask. So I'm just going to tap on this layer and tap on clipping mask. So you see this little sign here, that means it's a clipping mask now. So basically anything that I do in this layer is only going to show up on the painted portion underneath. It's not going to go outside of it. So we're not going to see any of the color running over the edges. And I love that because it makes it far easier to paint and it doesn't become as messy. So that's why I'm using a clipping mask here. So now that we have our clipping mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in painting different colors into these shells. And you can pick all the colors here, or you can pick your own colors too. And I'm going to use a different brush for this. You can use the same brush if you'd like, but I want something that looks a little bit more wet. So I'm going to go with brush number 13, which is Charged Watercolor A. And I'm going to start to see, let's see. It's not that visible, so I might change the color just a little bit. So this is where you need to adjust things. So yeah, I like that. So it's adding a subtle variation to this, and I'm going to lift my pencil occasionally and add in some pigment and just color in that area. So it's very soft, very wet looking. So that's what I'm going to do with all of these colors. I'm just going to start to color in certain sections of the doodles. And this is an intuitive process. Pick whichever colors that you like and just go with the flow. So we're just going to continue doing this. I'm done adding all of the different colors, so I'm just going to turn off the traceable for a moment and have a look. So at this point, if you want to smudge anything out, you can. I'm not going to, because I want it to retain a little bit of that messy quality, the you know, the variation that you see with watercolor. But if you want a smudge, let me show you how. You can go to the smudge tool and make sure that you're on the same brush pack, and brush number 6 is a smudger. So for example, let's say I wanted to smudge out this area here. So you can just gently smudge it out and it will even things out a bit if you'd like that. But I kind of like the messy quality of this, so I am going to leave it as is. You can start to add more color variation and more effects, but you don't have to. But let me show you. So I'm going to go to the layers panel. I'm going to tap on plus, and I'm going to do this in another clipping mask. If for some reason I decide to not go with these changes, then I can always turn it off. If I did everything in this layer, then it's kind of hard to go back. So I'm going to tap on this, make it a clipping mask. So you'll know something is a clipping mask if you see this sign. So now is the time to have some fun with the other brushes. So I'm going to go to the brush pack, the brush library, and you can have fun with the overlay brushes. This is really where you can add far more color variation. So I'm going to go with the Pigment Bleed overlay brush. This is brush number 32. And I'm going to, let's see, maybe I will select this color right here and make it a little bit darker. And I am at size 3, and I'm just going to tap at the edges. And as you can see, it's adding in some pigment. So it's as though the pigment is bleeding in to our shape, which I think is an interesting look. It also adds a little bit more definition. Do you see how that pops a bit more? So I'm going to do that for the rest of the doodles. Now I'm going to create another clipping mask layer, tap on plus, tap on the layer, clipping mask, and let's add some color variation with another brush. Maybe we can do it with the dilute splatter. Let's see how this looks. So I'm going to do the details in another layer, and I don't necessarily need this to be a clipping mask, so I'm not going to make it a clipping mask. I'm just going to go to the layers panel and tap on plus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back the traceable a bit more so you can actually see what we're doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these lines as a guide to add in some line work, just to make things pop a little bit more. And you can use any brush of your choice for this. I'm going to use the detail brushes here in the set. And generally I use brush number 37. It's my favorite one for details, but today I want to use something a bit different. I'm going to use dry edge detail. So the edges of this are a little bit dry compared to that one. And I'm going to vary my pressure so I get some areas which are thinner lines and some areas that are thick. So let me just show you that on the side. So to create that, go like that. Heavy, light, heavy, light. Do you see? It adds an interesting textural variety, and then you have thinner lines and thicker lines. If you use the same pressure throughout, it would look like that, which is absolutely fine. But I think when you're trying to make things look a little bit more hand done, which is really what I like, it's a good idea to vary your pressure. So for the next step, I'm going to add some white to this just to make things pop a little bit more. I feel like right now we have a lot of dark colors. It might be nice to add some white. And I'm going to do this in a different layer in case I decide to change the colors. So I'm going to use this brush here, brush number 43 for this. Create these lines here. Okay, so I finished adding all of the white details, so now I am going to add in the gold details. So in order to add in the gold details, I'm going to do this in another layer. So I'm just going to go to the layers panel and tap on plus. And before I can make this layer gold, because we're going to use a clipping mask to add a gold texture, I actually need to lay down the shapes first, and then what I'm going to do is add the gold texture on top of those shapes. So for the shapes, you can use any color of your choice. I'm just going to use black because it's a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to continue using the same brush, brush number 43, for all of these little elements that we are going to turn into gold later. So all of these ovals here and all of these little spots. Okay, so I think I am done with all of that. So I'm just going to go to the adjustments panel, tap on hue, saturation, and brightness, and then all the way up to max, and now we have white. And then what we're going to do is tap on plus and make this layer a clipping mask. This is where we're going to add our gold. So we're going to first select the gold color. So I'm going in with a very muted gold. You can go in with something that is a little bit more saturated too. And I am using a different brush pack for this, but you certainly don't have to. You can find a gold texture online too, something that is not copyrighted, of course, but I'm just going to use the gold texture in the Amazing Papers set. And I have 3 different gold foil textures. I'm going to use texture number A. Actually, no, maybe it's texture number B. Not texture number B. Texture number 39, which is foil texture B. And at the largest size, what I'm going to do, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Just zoom out and then just apply the texture in one motion all across the screen. So as you can see, this texture has areas where it's a little bit lighter. So do you see here? It's lighter. The light's hitting it, so you don't see as much of that gold, but here it's a little bit darker. So that's because the texture was meant to be used on a larger area, but when you're using on something that's so small like these details, sometimes it's not that visible. So what you want to do is just turn your canvas. I did this in the previous video too. Just turn the canvas and then apply that texture again. So now what will happen is you will be able to see that gold a lot better. I'm just going to turn off the traceable for a moment. So as you can see, you see the gold, but there are also elements which are a little bit lighter, so that shows that the light is hitting it. So it's far more natural looking compared to having the same type of color intensity across, because then it doesn't look like foil anymore. Now, if this is still not dark enough for you, what you can do, this is transparent. You can just swipe to the left and duplicate it. So it's far more intense. So now you can really see the gold. I might actually do a few more final details. I am done. Yes, we are done. So now let's have a look at what we made together. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!